Welcome to the DC Daily Drop, your one-stop shop for today's important news in DC movies, TV, and comics. Here are your hosts, Tom and Zach.
Welcome to a Tuesday, November 15th edition of the DC Daily Drop. I'm Tom.
And I'm Zach.
Today we're going to be reviewing Suicide Squad, the extended cut, which was just released digitally today, and it comes out December 13th in the US on Blu-ray and DVD. Before we get into it too much, since we didn't do a review of the actual theatrical cut, can you do a quick rundown of what you thought of that, Zach?
It was good.
That was very quick.
No, it was a lot of fun. For me, at least, probably the most I've laughed during a superhero film.
Okay.
So a lot of fun. There was definitely some. I won't disagree with some of the critics that there was some issues with the storyline, like just how they set it up. But
by the way, we're not to interrupt you, but we're going to do a quick. This is a spoiler review for the theatrical cut. We're assuming you've seen that.
Yes.
And then we're going to go on to non-spoiler thoughts on the extended cut review and then a spoiler recap later, but we'll let you know. But right now we can talk about spoilers for the theatrical cut.
Yeah. And so I think I had maybe some of the same issues that some people had with like just the big generic magic weird thing at the end.
Yeah.
But I don't think I was as bothered by it as most people were. But overall, just it was a good, fun superhero film, and it was amazing to see, Deadshot and Harley Quinn in this movie. I loved their characters and the way they interacted, and then I enjoyed the Joker in the theatrical cut. I didn't think that he didn't have enough time. I liked the little snippets of him. He's definitely a different kind of Joker. He's like the gangster Joker now, so
right.
Which was kind of cool. So I really enjoyed the movie, and probably a lot more than maybe the Rotten Tomatoes score might indicate that it should.
Yeah, so I loved all the character interactions between the squad. I mean, pretty much seeing any two or three of those characters together, I loved every minute of that. David Ayer is great at writing characters. Yeah, the plot was sort of. I don't think it was bad. I just think it was average that you would see in a comic book movie,
Yeah.
Nothing unique except for the concept of the Suicide Squad. That definitely had a unique feel to it. And that was the highlight for me by far, seeing the characters together. Yeah, I didn't like the villain. I know, I get Amanda Waller was really the villain. But the Enchantress and Incubus, after Enchantress transformed or left or was no longer in control, pretty much wasn't interested in that. Part of that is that I prefer the squad to sort of be fighting a smaller threat, doing a more covert operation, real world. So I don't really want to see the squad fighting the end of the world. But other than that, I mean, I liked the characters. Boomerang, Harley, Deadshot. I really enjoyed all of them and like seeing them interact. So overall, I really liked the film. Okay, so now we're going to be giving our non-spoiler thoughts on this extended cut. It's about 11 minutes longer, released today. What'd you think of it, Zach?
The parts that they added, it doesn't, for me at least, it doesn't really change the movie in a big way. Not like you would see with, like the Ultimate Edition of Batman vs. Superman. It's definitely nice additions, but it doesn't really change it that much for me.
I agree entirely. I think it's truly an extended cut. I mean, it just feels like they had the movie. It's the same movie, but they added in the deleted scenes. So nothing is really added to it story-wise. We get a little bit of character development from some of the characters, a little bit more story, but nothing that completely changes the film.
Yeah, there is one deleted scene that we'll talk about later that gets inserted that I at least think they should have kept in, because I think it sets up the relationship between two characters in a better way, or a way that I thought they should have. So, but we'll talk about that later.
And I will say, if you think this is just going to be 11 more minutes of Joker, then you're going to be disappointed.
Yeah.
There is more Joker. But I think some people added it up, and it's somewhere between 2 and 3 minutes more of the Joker out of the 11 scenes, or out of the 11 minutes. I was kind of surprised how those 11 minutes are pretty well distributed among characters. I would say Harley gets the most, but it's pretty balanced, and almost every character gets something more to do in those 11 minutes.
Yeah, and it's like you said, it's really spread out throughout the movie. It's not like jarring, like, oh, here's a whole 5-minute scene that they just cut out. It's more just snippets here and there, and so it's kind of easy to miss some of them. I know at least when I was taking notes, I was like, was this in the theatrical version? I don't remember now, because it was, it just fit in so well that you could tell that was the original scene, and they just cut out a little part of it. So
yeah, so like I said, it does feel like the deleted scenes are just added back in there. Having said that, I'm still glad that they did the extended cut, even if it doesn't change the film entirely. Whenever they have deleted scenes, they're usually out of context, and they don't have a musical score to them, and you don't really, it's sort of jarring to see them on their own. Here, they fit together pretty well and flowed well. I mean, as far as those particular scenes went, like you said, it wasn't jarring to see them in there.
Yeah.
So would you recommend people buying this now on digital, or just waiting for the Blu-ray?
If I'm being completely honest, I would say just wait for the Blu-ray. Obviously, we bought it digitally, but we're crazy people. But I don't think you're going to be missing out a whole ton if you just wait to get the Blu-ray.
Right. It's not a different movie. So I would say, I agree with you there. I would say if you were thinking about buying digitally and then buying on home video, I would say just wait for the home video. There's nothing here. There's some cool things that you definitely want to see, but as far as buying it twice, I wouldn't recommend. I know with Batman v Superman, like on Vudu, you could buy the disc plus digital. So I got the digital release the day it came out, and then the Blu-ray was shipped to me for the same price, so I didn't have to buy it twice.
Yeah.
I haven't seen an offer like that for Suicide Squad out, so unless somebody's seen that, let us know, but I wouldn't recommend. I don't think you need to buy it twice, unless you just love this film and have to see it today.
Yeah. The other thing is, I think, at least I bought it on Google Play, and it didn't come with it just came with the theatrical and the extended cut. It didn't have any of the bonus features like I've gotten with some of the other movies I bought there. Whereas when the Blu-ray comes out, it's going to have some additional bonus features on top of this.
Right, that's a good point. I didn't even think of that. I know, like I said, with the Batman v Superman on Vudu, I got the theatrical film, the Ultimate Edition, and all the special features the first day the digital released. I don't know if the special features are available anywhere digitally. I'm sure they are, but I haven't seen anything. I know Amazon, I think they weren't. So obviously not with Google Play, like you said. So
yep.
All right, well, that's all we've got for the non-spoiler talk. I guess we'll get into the spoiler review now. So we'll be talking about the new stuff, basically. So,
all right. The first scene that we noticed that is it extended is during the character intros. At the beginning where everybody gets their own little song, and Waller is basically explaining them all. During Harley's character intro, there's more of the Arkham Asylum scene. And so we see a little more of Joker talking to Harley when he's going to electrocute her, basically. So it's like maybe 15, 20 seconds of extra dialogue from Joker.
I think it's probably a little more than that. I don't know. It's always tough to judge, but we get to see more of the Joker talking. He says, "You left me in
a dark pit," or something like that.
Some sort of rage and confusion.
Yeah.
Something good. I mean, the Joker did get a few good lines in this, but in the extended cut, that was nice to see.
Mm-hmm. The next one is when they're riding on the...
when the helicopter crashes there, we see the Killer Croc vomiting, and it's throwing up, and Harley yells out "party foul."
Yeah.
This is probably a shorter thing that's added, and there's a few different things like that where we see each character gets a few seconds more to do. They're not just long scenes spread throughout, but little scenes like this mixed in.
Yeah. And one of the funniest things that I think got cut was when Deadshot talks to Harley. This isn't theatrical, but tells her to spread the word, and then she tells Captain Boomerang, and then he goes around telling people, spreading the word.
So we got to see a lot more Boomerang in this scene. This was a very fun scene.
Yeah. What was the line that he had about them asking questions? What was it?
So he goes over to who's he tell first? I think he tells Diablo and Killer Croc, but he says the one of them. Somebody keeps asking him questions about it. What are you, bloody Socrates, with all these questions? That was a really good line from Boomerang. I thought Jack Courtney was really fun in this film.
Yeah.
He didn't get a lot of boomerangs to throw, but he was still fun and good comedic relief throughout.
Yeah. And so this is one of those scenes I wish they would have left in too, because Boomerang was one of my favorite parts, like you said. And so this is just a few more seconds of him being funny that I think would have fit well in the movie, but oh well.
Yeah, we also got to see more of the Rick Flag and Deadshot interaction. There's a quite a long scene in the middle there where he's sort of talking about basically we aren't going to get out of this unless we all fight together. And he tells Deadshot, he's got some connections, he can get him freedom and everything. And more of their relationship. Their relationship was sort of a core part of the film, in the theatrical film, and we just see it fleshed out a little bit more, and that comes back in at the bar scene later. There's a little part added there where he's talking about, what Flag offered him. Yeah, but I don't know that added to the story. Maybe a little more to their relationship, but again, I don't think that's something that added to the story that much.
Yeah, I think we got that without it, probably. So it's probably a good cut. The next scene is, I think, the most important of the deleted scenes in this extended edition is Harley sees a motorcycle while they're kind of walking around the city, and that kind of like triggers a flashback about her and the Joker. And so Joker is driving away in a car, and she is chasing him on a motorcycle. And this is that, if you saw the exclusive clip on Entertainment Weekly, I think had it, you saw just a little intro of this scene, but it's a little longer than that. And so she kind of crashes the motorcycle, skids on the road, and,
pretty cool visual there where she's like skiing on top of the motorcycle sideways.
Yeah. But she, she's like pleading with him, like, don't leave me, don't leave me.
Yeah. So this is after he got out of Arkham and he's basically running away. But
yeah,
Dr. Harleen Quinzel chases him down.
Yeah. And she talks about how she's like, I've done all the trials and the initiations. And so Joker's put her through all this stuff, and like she doesn't understand why he doesn't love her yet, basically doesn't accept her.
Doesn't want to be with her. Yeah. So she feels like he's been putting her through those things, hoping that she would become a sidekick or whatever. But he's free now. He used her to get free, and he just kind of wants to get rid of her. You can see the annoyed look on his face as she pulls up to him.
Yeah. And he says he has a line that's, I'm not someone who is loved, I'm an idea. And so just more weird Joker stuff.
Yeah, that's kind of a cool line when you think about it.
Yeah. And so they're blocking traffic, and a truck shows up, and the truck driver...
Kind of weird. It looks like there's like a 3-lane highway there. I couldn't tell which way it was going, but everybody just sort of lined up behind him. I'm like, just drive around, guys. They're just in the middle there. Tiny little Joker mobile.
But the truck driver gets out, and Harleen just shoots him, kills him, and then puts the gun to Joker's head. And he's like, he tells her to do it, just pull the trigger.
He's egging her on.
Yeah, and so she's like super upset about this, and she has a great line. It's like, my heart scares you, but a gun doesn't.
Yeah. And then Joker comes back later. He takes the gun from her ultimately, and he says, I love this line, if you weren't so crazy, I think you were insane. That's such an awesome quote to describe the Joker and Harley relationship.
Yeah. So I think this scene, I think the scene is pretty important, actually, and it kind of changes, at least for me, my viewpoint about Harley and Joker's relationship through the rest of the film, especially like with, like the jumping into the chemical bath. That scene, I think it adds another layer on there of like, this is just one more trial. Like, he's made her do so many things, and all she wants is to be accepted by him. So it kind of turns him more into a scumbag than was maybe presented in the original version of the film.
I agree with you, and I think this is a really fun scene, but I do totally understand why they cut it out. Mm-hmm. Well, for starters, I think it might have helped smooth, some people had problems with the editing of the film. I actually didn't. It felt like some crazy psychopathic murderers, like the way it sort of jumped around. I thought that made sense for the characters in the film, and it wasn't hard to follow around. But I think this is one of those things where we would have seen a little bit more of the Joker-Harley relationship, so it's more of a steady progression throughout, so we don't jump around as much. But having said that, and I'm glad we get to see it, but I understand why they cut it, because it's pretty clear they didn't want to show any of the really abusive parts of their relationship. We don't see the Joker hitting Harley or anything like that, which, whether you agree with or not, I think it might have been a good idea. I mean, they had success financially, and I think people wanted to see it, but they also, how do I say this? I guess the way Harley is presented in the theatrical cut is more of an anti-hero than as a pure villain. We don't really see her being a villain. I mean, there's a quick flash where it says, accomplice to the murder of Joker or of Robin, but we never really see her bashing anybody's head in but the villain. So to see her sort of shooting the truck driver in cold blood,
Yeah.
I think that's the reason it was cut out. I think they wanted to make Harley more relatable and sort of more fan-friendly, more of an anti-hero as opposed to a true villain. That's what it looks like to me.
Yeah, that does make sense.
And that's, some people had a problem with that. We don't really get to see the villains being villains that much. A lot of them feel like anti-heroes. And so if we'd seen Harley shooting that guy, it's sort of tougher to root for her later on.
Yeah.
And by the end of the film, we have to be rooting for her.
Definitely. Yeah, I think you've swayed me. That makes sense.
Well, I'm not trying to sway you.
No.
But I think that makes sense. I would have loved to have seen more Joker and Harley, but it makes sense why they did that to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't really think about the fact, I guess, I don't know what that says about me, but I didn't really think about the fact that she just murdered that dude without any thought.
Well, I mean, we know she's crazy, a crazy murderer, but like the general audience watching this doesn't know that.
Right.
And so to see her doing that, I don't know, maybe it would have sold fewer Harley Halloween costumes. And
yeah, she's a lot more sympathetic of a character if you don't see her doing that.
Right.
She really, in the theatrical version, she really hasn't done anything that bad.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, she did still get the Joker's goons some machine guns so he could get out. But yeah, we don't physically see her doing anything that terrible except to the nameless villains.
All right. And then the next scene is even more Harley. It's just kind of, again, the squad, walking around town, and she is doing some psychoanalysis on some of the members, basically figuring out like who has daddy problems, who has mommy problems, which is pretty awesome because, just calling back to her background as a psychiatrist and then using that still while she is a crazy person now herself. Which
is funny because this was right after the flashback that we just talked about, right?
Right.
And then, so she's almost using it as a coping mechanism, sort of psychoanalyzing everyone else because she doesn't want to get in her head anymore.
Right.
So she's sort of attacking everyone else. That leads to some funny parts. We see, she talks to pretty much everyone. There's a funny part with Killer Croc where she asks why he eats people and asks if he wants to eat her. And he says, "I don't want, you're crazy," which is pretty funny.
Yeah. And then the next scene, and then I think this is the last scene that is really extended.
Yeah, the last really extended part was that bar scene. We saw a lot of it in one of the trailers, but we see a lot more to it in this.
Yeah. So we see like everybody's drink orders. I think they ask Katana if she wants a sake, but she gets a whiskey.
Yeah, Harley. Harley calls her a ninja and asks if she wants a sake. And then there's the funny part, in the theatrical cut where Katana says she's not a thief. After they all say that they're thieves, and then Boomerang says he thinks of himself more as an asset relocation specialist, is what I think he said, which is just Boomer being a complete jerk and justifying it in his own head.
Right. And this was in the theatrical version, but I just watching this again, I think the funniest part for me is when basically Rick is like, "Okay, you guys are free to go." Or like he destroys it and Boomerang just runs away.
Grabs the beers and takes off.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was that got one of the biggest laughs in the opening night showing. But
yeah. So yeah, that's all of the really extended versions. There's just some little, like you said, a couple extra beats for different characters here and there that we probably missed a couple little things, but
yeah, there's a handful of lines mixed in, sort of sprinkled in throughout that don't add a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think this adds a whole lot to the story, like we said. I do think the way that psychoanalysis scene we talked about, that sort of made a line Harley said later when she calls Deadshot she says he's another classic sociopath, I think.
Right.
That sort of makes more sense after why she phrased it that way.
Yeah.
After seeing her be Dr. Harleen with everyone. But again, that's not really something that adds to the story much. Just a little more character depth.
Yeah, so overall, like we said, if you were hoping for just 11 minute scene with Joker, that's not what you're going to get with these extended cuts. There's definitely more Joker, but it just kind of makes him a worse person, and we see those hints of the abusive relationship, and some of the stuff that didn't make it in the extended cut is probably worse than this, which makes sense why they didn't put it in.
Yeah, it looks like they made an early decision to not show the abusive stuff, so we don't see it in the theatrical cut, and we don't see it here. But yeah, I mean, if you liked the theatrical cut, you'll like this. If you know, it's just the deleted scenes added back in. And so, I mean, it's still only about 2 hours and 4 minutes before credits. So it's not a long thing. It's under 2 hours and 15 minutes total. So it's not really long. It doesn't drastically change anything, but it's fun to watch. And it adds more funny scenes and more character interactions, which were my favorite part of the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, and just so you know, there's no like extra mid-credit scene, and it's not extended at all. So that didn't change at all. You don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think if you want to see this movie, go ahead and buy it. I will definitely not tell you not to do that. I bought it, but I would probably recommend just waiting for the Blu-ray to come out, because like we said, you're going to get this movie. It doesn't change the story that much, and then you're also going to get the bonus features on the Blu-ray that, at least so far, it doesn't look like you can get on the digital version.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend buying it twice unless you're addicted, like we are apparently.
Right.
But it's definitely worth watching, but it's not something you have to see right away. It's not going to change the movie for you. It's fun, and I enjoyed watching it. So that's it. Anything else you want to add about it?
No, I think we've covered it all.
I mean, you don't wish they had released this version instead, do you?
No, I mean, I think it really does. I understand. I can see the things that they cut, and it makes sense that they cut it. It doesn't. I don't think the movie would have done like 5 million% better if they had released this version instead. So
right.
It just seems like, general run of the mill kind of stuff that gets cut from movies. Nothing jumped out as insane deleted scene. Like, it just seemed like normal deleted scenes from a movie.
Right.
So other than the motorcycle scene with Harley and Joker, which I think would have added more to the story, but like you explained, I think it does make sense because we see Harley killing that guy, and that kind of changes her character in a way that maybe they didn't want to present her like. So,
and there's nothing. I think they could have added. They could have added part of that in and just cut out the part of her shooting him. You know what I mean? Yeah. I would have liked to have seen more Joker and Harley. I don't know. I mean, they could probably edit around her shooting him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But at that point, you might as well just cut it out, I guess.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, that's all we've got for today. Thanks for listening. We'll be back again tomorrow.
Thanks for listening, and make sure to check out DC Daily Drop on Twitter, Facebook, and DCDailyDrop.com. Drop by tomorrow for more DC news.